Alright, so I know the past videos have just been reactions, but this is just too good to pass up. The Doomsday Rex. Goji Center is going to tell us about it, and it just sounds so cool. It looks amazing. It looks like a two-headed T-Rex. I can't wait. I hope this is actually part of the new movie and it's going to kick some ass, but yeah. Go check out Goji Center, give some love, and let's get straight to it. I can't wait any longer.
It's been 10 years since hybrid dinosaurs have become a staple of the Jurassic franchise. But would you believe that we could have possibly got even more bizarre monsters introduced in this universe much earlier? Today on Goji Center, we'll break down the most horrific and hideous hybrid to ever make it into the concept stage.
It's got 3 heads.
Doomsday Rex. Time for something that might have wound up being prophetic. To begin, we'll talk about a bit of background explaining how this thing came
I should have
to
had 2 tails.
A lot of this happened before a lot of our channel viewers were even born. So strap in, because there's a bit or a lot of our bit of background explaining how this thing came to fruition. A lot of this happened before a lot of our channel viewers were even born. So strap in, because there's a bit we need to catch up on. After the smash success of the first movie based on Dr. Crichton's best-selling novel, there were plans immediately to turn Jurassic Park into a franchise.
If you haven't watched the original trilogy, just go watch it. It's so good.
That included an animated television series. The first pitch, shortly, was a sequel to the movie, since the second novel wasn't written out yet. This had a much more grounded-style plot, with Isla Nublar getting renovated.
Sorry about that. No, just making sure everything is recording fine.
Handling a plot with dinosaurs escaping on the mainland. Stuff that we would wind up seeing more than a decade later in the second trilogy. The idea of some kind of monstrous, unusual dinosaur even lingered about in the tie-in comics from Topps. And an early draft of the second movie including a giant super raptor that wound up turning into the final boss for the Trespasser video game. The second attempt at a TV series, however,
I wish I could play those and I knew about it back then.
A completely serious pitch for a follow-up to the
These
second
look like
movie
Overwatch
that
characters.
Hybrid monstrosities, sci-fi weapons, souped-up giant versions of the normal dinosaurs, and this.
Bro, that looks
like
absolutely insane.
Straight out of Resident Evil. This ungodly abomination was to be the big final antagonist for the series.
Bro, this is like if Jabba the Hutt had sex with some sort of weird parasite that had multiple heads. Like, this is some Jabba the Hutt freaking amalgamation. This one doesn't have any eyes.
Doomsday Rex.
What the heck?
What exactly the plot was going to be is still elusive to this day.
There's only the middle one of eyes.
Much behind the scenes info besides the concept art by Philip J. Felix. Today, we are going to explore this as much as we can, as well as speculate as to what the King of Doomsday was going to be capable of, if it was real.
Bro.
The design. The Doomsday Rex apparently has 2 different stages it would have undergone during the series. The first stage already was as big as most of the larger carnivores in the franchise. A 3-headed Cerberus of a monster sporting fleshy tendrils, a misshapen central body, and 3 different heads roughly in the shape of a Tyrannosaurus. This, alongside the name, is a pretty good indicator of at least one of the genomes involved being
this thing looks
T-Rex. The baleful blob would have had
disgusting.
a hard time rearing up, let alone moving around in the outside world. Even with its formidable jaws and huge size, more agile opponents like an actual T-Rex would be able to dodge around this thing and tear chunks. And you can forget about worrying about this thing catching up to you in an open area. For a series about genetics gone wrong, this would have been the epitome of that. No point in attempting to discuss how this is biologically plausible, since this thing looks like it belongs in Hollow Earth or Skull Island.
What the heck are you doing?
Its borderline supernatural transformation to its second state would yield a far more formidable and also even more unbelievable creature. Behold, Doomsday. As most would have probably remembered it had this monster made its debut. Down to 2 heads now, but with a much more organized and recognizable body type as a theropod, essentially being a doubled-up Tyrannosaurus with extra spines, 2 sets of elongated arms, more grisly features, and we have something that looks like the final boss of a climactic series. What exactly was in the genome of this thing is anyone's guess. The base is obviously still Tyrannosaurus, now recognizable.
Honestly, I don't know about anything in real life that has 2 heads, so I have no idea where the genome would be from.
Strange state of the teeth could indicate an unknown hybrid splicing. This could have either given it new sensory abilities, additional weapons, or just an edgy amount of spikes that would make the Dominion
Bro, those
ego look
steps
smooth by
sound
comparison.
amazing.
However, reaching this size makes us run into a big problem, and one of the big reasons why you would never see this Doomsday participating in the Great Hybrid War. See this right here? If this was an InGen Tyrannosaurus, Doomsday would be somewhere in the ballpark of 15 meters tall.
That's like
at the
the
top of the head.
Giganotosaurus from
At that size, assuming that the
Survival
show it
Evolved.
features in doesn't severely underestimate its
Bro.
weight, Doomsday would weigh at a staggering 240 tons.
That's a heavy
However,
bitch.
looking at the label, this isn't just a typical Jurassic Series Tyrannosaurus like the Buck and Doe from the Lost World movie. This is another original monster for the series called a Super Rex, orders of magnitude bigger than the Rexes seen in the series. And
sounds so
according
sick.
to the scaling from the human figure right here, this oversized Turbo T-Rex would already be 9 meters tall at the top of the head,
Bro,
about
what the heck?
double the height of most of the T-Rexes from the first trilogy. So, what does this mean for the King of Doomsday?
That
it
guy's
would have been
massive.
more at home in something like the Monsterverse than anything in the more grounded Jurassic franchise. Being over 30 meters tall, about 100 feet high,
Bro,
at the top of
the
the
heck?
head. The reason why nature never cooked up something like this is because of
Too
one
big.
huge rule: square cube law. For those new to the
Okay.
channel or who might have
Maths.
missed earlier
Always comes down to
explanations,
maths.
square cube
Some
law
bullshit.
basically states that when you double the dimensions of something, you don't increase the mass by 2, you increase it by 8. Say we got a human that was exactly 200 pounds and 6 feet tall. If you doubled their size, you are now doubling how tall they are top to bottom, how thick they are from front to back, and how wide they are side to side. 2 times 2 times 2 is 8. So, our new
Heavy
12-foot
bitch.
giant doesn't weigh double what they used to at 400 pounds. Instead, they weigh
Bro.
1,600 pounds. So,
That's a heavy
back to
bitch.
our Doomsday Rex. Scaling up a Tyrannosaurus to 24 meters tall at the hip and adding some more mass for a second head and extra limbs, and this absolute colossus of a hybrid could have a mass of roughly 1.3 million kilograms. That's
Bro,
right,
what?
that's 1,400 tons. Yeah. We weren't kidding when we said this would be
Bro.
something more fit to square up with some smaller kaiju than anything
Yeah, that's a
in the
good
Jurassic
fight for
franchise.
Skullcrawler.
Just to exist at that size like this breaks every law of physics when it comes to animal biology. This thing would need bones stronger than steel and muscle tissue with thousands of times the torque than the real thing. Just
wonder
to
if it has
stand up
really
or
quick
move.
regeneration.
But we aren't
I
going to
don't know.
cut this video short and leave you with your arms crossed, wondering how powerful this thing could be, absent physics. So, what if it was real?
Heck
How
yeah,
much
no physics. Let's
power
go
would we
so
be
we can see
talking
its
about
full
here?
potential.
At this huge size, bolstering all of its strength, this juggernaut would have a scaled-up chump of a T-Rex to a degree no other hybrid would be able to compare.
Ooh, that's
In a
gonna
previous
just straight
episode
up in half,
discussing the
even worse
biological
than what the
plausibility
T-Rex
of
could already do.
Rebirth's mutant T-Rex, we cited a study by Manabu Sakamoto, which found that doubling the size of a dinosaur's jaws and keeping relatively similar shape roughly corresponds to a 50 to 60% increase in force, with the increase decreasing the bigger and bigger something gets. So, for any curious, it wouldn't be a simple matter of doubling T-Rex bite force repeatedly. Sheer mass and gravity works against an object the bigger it gets. So, taking this into account,
That
the
is
crush
true.
of Doomsday scales up over 900,000 newtons of force in the jaws. In terms of PSI, we are looking at over 200,000 PSI.
Oh my.
Assuming these jaws can withstand such
Why is it curved like that? Bro, it looks a little special,
force,
Special
this thing could
needs.
crunch through armored vehicles and
Oh, I didn't
shatter
even
any
notice.
dinosaur-
Hold on, I didn't even realize the one has like, what are these spikes on the nose and the other one's flat. They got spikes here out of the nose.
Pressed
What
its
the shit?
teeth on. How the hell the protagonists were supposed to deal with this thing in the series is anyone's guess.
You deal
Other
with it by
concept
not
art
going to
shows
the
off
island.
science
There you go.
fiction Tech, like mech suits and energy weapons. You know, exactly the typical things the Jurassic franchise often had in dealing with dinosaurs. Had this become the norm for the franchise, we would half expect to see a half
This makes you look so sick.
storage by
It
the
looks
time
so
the
sick.
Indominus busted out. Unless the hybrid got shrunk down considerably by the time it would have shown up in the series, this thing would have taken some serious heavy ordnance to take down. Either some powerful device like a high-grade explosive, some kind
Just
of
drop a nuke.
synthesized bioweapon, or an outright natural disaster like a volcanic eruption. We
A
are talking about
thermonuclear
what
bomb.
is essentially a kaiju instead
Bro,
of a
that is
dinosaur
massive.
after all. Doomsday Rex absolutely would be Doomsday.
That thing's
to
big enough
anything
to
it
chop
encountered
the
if
head
this
off
thing
straight
was
from a
up and
brachii
running
while
around.
it's standing. That's
Sauropods
insane.
would become snacks, and previous titans of terror, like the normal Tyrannosaurus, could literally get stomped underfoot.
Bro,
So, how practical would this animal be?
Not
In
at
a word,
all.
just No.
Yeah.
Hell no. Let's
No,
remember that
not a chance.
absolutely massive tyrannosaurs and carnosaurs like T-Rex and the Giga were already pushing the limits on how big a bipedal animal can get. Supporting all of your weight on, let alone trying to run and maneuver upon just 2 legs, means each leg is under a lot more force than on a quadruped. Even with the physics warping that just tends
It
to
must have
happen
some
with any
real
fictional
joint issues.
franchise, the cloned creations in the Jurassic franchise are still supposed to be normal flesh and blood animals. They just don't break physics to the same degree, something like Godzilla. Now, certain
Well,
types
Godzilla
of
is
animals
dope.
can have
He's
chemically
awesome, so
and
it's fine.
structurally reinforced bones, for example, but at the end of the day, bone is still bone. And no amount of leg bone in the shape we see here is ever going to hold up even a fraction of that weight. The largest
No.
that something the shape of the Doomsday Rex could get is a bit nebulous, but over 18,000 kilograms or 14 tons is
That is very
probably
tiny.
close to the limit. And that's with it living in captivity. No way could something that big survive in the wild with this kind of condition. At this size, the Doomsday Rex would be about 5.5 meters or 18 feet tall.
That's
About
crazy.
the same height as Rexian Dominion, but packing a lot of extra mass, with a thicker torso and second
And
head.
double the bite
Still
power with 2 heads.
gigantic compared to most other predators in the franchise. But being even just this
This design
size
is
would
so
mean
cool.
keeping up any amount of agility or speed would be very difficult.
Yeah, it's a lot slower than a T-Rex. T-Rex already can't run, it can only walk fast. This one is going to be way slower.
Too front heavy, making it awkward to move around, and despite its appearance, would actually have issues fighting without a longer pair of forelimbs to aid in balance if it tips over. And that's without getting into the internal issues. The Doomsday resembles a case of conjoined twin syndrome, so the internals would probably be pretty similar. This condition essentially means 2 individuals are sharing a body because they didn't fully divide as egg
So you're
cells.
telling me that thing
The
has 2
specific term
hearts,
we're
2
looking at
stomachs.
here is probably a case of what is called dicephalic parapagus. This is where the 2 individuals share most of the same lower body but have a split spinal cord somewhere along the torso to have 2 separate
yeah.
heads. Multiple sets of arms called tetrabrachius can also happen in some cases. Dicephalic parapagus is survivable, and the pair can live long lives if the twins make it past infancy, especially if certain organs like the heart are also
What
doubled.
the heck is that?
This
Is that supposed to be a
doesn't
shark?
always happen, however, so
Oh,
many
that looks
individuals
gross.
are tragically
What is it?
stillborn,
What is
often
that?
because they had
What is
just
this
one
shit?
heart that couldn't keep up with double the burden. And this leads to
That does
another
not
problem
look
with
fun.
this animal
The heads are
bringing
too
its
big,
own
just
doom upon
touching the
itself.
entire time.
If it really did start out as that 3-headed blob, that means some kind of bizarre metamorphosis.
Bro, these are just
happened from the
toes. Those are all
first to second
toes.
Stage, meaning one of those
Size
heads
difference
was
is crazy.
either destroyed or perhaps even more gruesomely might have been absorbed into the body while it was maturing. Whatever was left of that head and any other organs attached essentially
gross.
would become a parasite in its own body.
That looks like a fish. That just straight up looks like a catfish or something.
Sapping nutrients,
the
overtaxing
heck?
the organs even more, and causing all manner of
The
disruptions.
other head is then somewhere in the
a
body.
real 2-headed tyrannosaur probably did exist at some point or another. Doubled up
That is a
animals
crazy
have been
thought.
found in the wild and in the fossil record. But in this kind of case, doubling the bodies wouldn't double the mass. Stress on the body would make even that 1 in a million chance the form is functional. A twinned Rex might actually wind up somewhat smaller than a normal T-Rex. Smaller and less able to hunt down big, dangerous game, a more realistic Doomsday Rex might still be sufficiently dangerous to hunt down lesser animals. So, possibly, like its
Bro.
more modern counterpart set to stalk the screen in Jurassic World Rebirth,
T-Rex.
Doom might come for a slower moving, squishy, and easy-to-catch food.
My gosh.
Humans.
Yeah. Okay, that thing looks amazing. I hope we learn more about that soon. I hope there's more mutants like that as well. Like, we're just gonna get a 3-headed pterodactyl is gonna come and just pierce your head. That'll be insane. But yeah, I actually honestly have to cut this short because I have to go to university. But I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, leave a like, subscribe. Go check out Goji Center. I'll check you guys in the next one. Peace out.